Hey, how's it going, everyone? Just want to do a lesson, have a quick dialogue on the Bible and its, stance, I guess, on this ball Earth versus flat Earth debate. To me, again, this is why this debate is very important because of the other implications that it has. And so, it's not just simply getting the structure right and the math and the science and the physics. That's obviously, again, very, very important. Obviously know our surroundings and what we're standing on, but it's not just like a cosmetic or mathematical thing, because if the modern day understanding of the world, of the shape of the earth, is correct, this oblate spheroid, to me that automatically eliminates the Bible in its entirety. And in my opinion, the reason why the earth is described the way it is because it goes completely against the Bible. That's its very purpose, that God has done this. And so, I just want to read a couple verses that support the flat earth, the geocentric, understanding of the earth according to the Bible. So Joshua 10:12-14. Then spake Joshua to the Lord in the day when the Lord delivered up the Amorites before the children of Israel. And he said in the sight of Israel, Sun, stand thou still upon Gibeon, and thou moon in the valley of Ajalon. And the sun stood still, and the moon stayed, until the people had avenged themselves upon their enemies. Is not this written in the book of Jasher? So the sun stood still in the midst of heaven, and hasted not to go down about a whole day. And there was no day like that before it or after it, that the Lord hearkened unto the voice of a man, for the Lord fought for Israel. So one could say, when it says in 13, and the sun stood still, well, God's just reaffirming that it stood still. But you can't confuse the fact that it said, and the moon stayed. So the moon is moving in this verse, and the sun as well, if you're honest and approaching this fairly. If you interpret both the same, which they have no reason to not be. So the sun and the moon are moving, and in this case, God actually stopped the sun and the moon, which shows what kind of power of an entity that we're dealing with. And so, and this is a very important thing because it says, and there was no day like that before it or after. So this is the first time it happened and the only time. So, that's an amazing thing. It would be incredible to be one of those people living in those times to actually see something like this. To me, I would be incredibly fearful. I honestly wouldn't know what to do afterwards if I saw something like that. But so this verse in and of itself, you can't look in other parts of the Bible and find something contradictory. And if you do, to me, that's another thing. You can just erase the Bible. It's like it's internally inconsistent about the shape of the earth. Then just dismiss it. If it's getting this wrong, why would we look at it for anything else? It's like it's confused about the shape of the earth and what the sun and the moon are doing. This verse, obviously, to me, consistent with Genesis, where the sun and the moon are within the firmament. But other people have looked to Isaiah 40:22, and this is the King James. It is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth, and the inhabitants thereof are as grasshoppers, that stretcheth out the heavens as a curtain, and spreadeth them out as a tent to dwell in. So this, to me, reaffirms, this notion of a firmament. We're living in like an enclosed space, and this concept of the word circle, is used to support sphere Earth, because a circle and a sphere obviously have a relationship, but neither of those two things can be confused with an oblate spheroid, which is an ellipse rotated around its minor axis. So the Bible does not support oblate Earth at all, and so if modern day science, their understanding is correct, to me the entire Bible is absolutely out the window. It's garbage, and so that's why the stakes are really, really high for this discussion. And so that's a very important thing too, because if the Bible's thrown out, then the book of Genesis is trash, and then that's cited by other religions like Islam and Judaism. So three of the major world religions, garbage. Overnight. To me, this is again another reason why, for me, I know that ball Earth is not true, is because if this were really known and like obvious, and basically heresy, if a person doesn't believe this, those three groups should be ridiculed like adamantly, like vehemently, like they would be all considered madmen. It's like we hear even like rappers. Drake has a song "God's Plan," and his mom is a Jew, and so Jewish. That's another lesson I can talk about who the real Jews are. His dad is likely a real Jew, so-called African American Negro, but his mom is Jewish, so his sort of religious background is Judaism, as they've interpreted it. But he's talking about God's plan. Like, why isn't he ridiculed? Like, what are you talking about? It's like you're referencing a God of a book that is false. Why isn't he criticized? What are you talking about God's plan? The Jewish God, that believes that the earth is flat and all this madness. It's like those people. Why are they allowed to make a song and play in the clubs on the radio as if like that would be like those would be lunatics that are rapping about that God? It's like, where is the criticism? Why not ante up? Why aren't the ballers anteing up and saying, hey, we're putting all this on the table, this science, this understanding of the earth structure, and either we're right, and all those three religions and anyone that references the book of Genesis, or references the Bible in any meaningful way are false. You guys literally need to shut up, because you're just talking about things that are blatant lies. Where is that energy, that push? That would be the natural consequence of Oblate's earth being the correct understanding of the earth. That's put all your cards on the table. Then I would love to see that. I would love to see the atheists put up everything against the three major religions of the world. That would be, why not both sides put all the money on the table, so to speak, and let's see. There's definitely enough resources in those four communities. Let's say a lot of the, I'm not saying all, but let's say a lot of the Oblate Earth community are atheists. Put the atheists up against the Christians, the Muslims, and the Jews, and just put everything on the table. So that's really what's at stake here. So the Bible does not support Oblate Earth. You can make an argument of this one verse that it supports a perfectly sphere Earth, but again, circle. There's no reason to not think that it's talking about a circle. If God's looking down on a circle with a dome over it, it would be a circle. That's just a fact. You could say it with the dome. You could maybe say it's like half of a sphere, but we don't know or have the calculations on what that structure actually is in the Bible. In Isaiah 40:22, it actually describes it as a curtain or a tent. And so that's what's at stake here. Let's be very, very clear about this. And to me, since I don't have the money or the the tools and all that to prove this rigorously, I have a feeling it's, again, like I've said many times, it's going to happen soon. But for now, I can only wait for the mark of the beast, because that is the one thing that the Bible says that will impact everybody. And this video is in response to somebody on the comment board who made a good point. He's talking about GPS and saying stuff like, that's something that everybody can, touch, hold, feel, experience, know that it works reliably, and all that. And religion is the opposite of that, really. The antithesis of that type of experience. And that's a true statement. A lot of the stuff is really, religions are all about just theoretical stuff. God, has ordained me to bring this message to you. Pay me on the way out, kind of thing. That's all they experience about God. That's very fair, but that's a very fair statement. But the mark of the beast is a very, very bold prophecy that I've not seen in any other religions. And if there are some like that, let me know, because the Bible is very, very clear in the mark of the beast prophecy that it'll impact all. ALL, capital letters, all. It even explicitly starts rhyming off rich and poor, free and bond, everybody. So this transcends economic status, educational status, religious status, political status, whatever status, fame, not famous, all that stuff. So it will be personal, very much so, and deeply personal, because it will actually be physical, within one's body, either in the hand or in the forehead. So this is a very broad prophecy because it applies to every single human who wants to still be a part of the system, to be able to buy or sell. And it impacts them in a very, very personal way, where each person will have to make a decision, to go along with it or not. And so that's why it is like the GPS analogy. It is going to be something that everybody will be able to, quote unquote, touch and feel and experience. And in my opinion, I think it's going to be, if I'm alive from now until 5 years from now, pretty much I've kind of given it a mental deadline of like a couple years, but more than 5 years to me, if it doesn't happen, if the RFID comes out and it's not mandatory, and it just kind of sits there, and it's just one of the other technologies that are out there that people have the option to use, if they just don't want to have credit cards and stuff, and the cumbersome keys and cards and all these different things. They just want to consolidate into one technology, but they don't have to if they don't want to. That is not the fulfillment of this verse. And in my opinion, if it stays like that for a long time and looks like it's not going to change, where the governments don't force it upon everybody in order to buy and sell, the Bible's out the window. For me personally, it's gone, it's trash. I will burn it on air as best as I can. I mean, I'll not do it in my apartment, but I will discard of it, and really all religious texts. I used to have a copy of the Quran in my apartment, but when I moved here from New York, I got rid of it. But I would get rid of all that stuff, and I would have no shame or no remorse. I don't care who I would offend in the Christian world or the Muslim world or whatever. If I had the Torah, I would burn that. I'd get rid of all this stuff. It's like I'd throw it all away, because if the Bible is untrustworthy, or gets a couple things wrong, that's a pretty big thing to get wrong. You can argue with some of the wording of it. In the book of Mark it says this, and then in the book of John it says that, and it's a little bit inconsistent about what how that person is recounting the experience. That's one thing. Not to me, don't throw out the baby with the bathwater, but this to me is a prophecy that is coming directly from God. So it's like those people can have different memories or different perspective on experience, and it's not like going against the character of God. If one person remembers something slightly different than somebody else, but if in the final book that is in the Bible, and a prophecy that is coming directly from God that involves every single person, if that's wrong, doesn't happen and manifest, and I'm talking it doesn't manifest exactly the way that it's written, where it does involve all, required for commerce, rich and poor, and all that stuff, and then have the consequences that are also prophesied. To me, the Bible is absolute gibberish, worthy to be destroyed, and I would actually recommend people to destroy it, because you're leading people astray with a book that has no predictive capability. The God just says a bunch of crap, basically, that's not coming true. There's no reason to follow it. It would mislead. It's confusing, and to me, it's deeply, deeply evil book. If what it says is supposed to come true and affect all people doesn't manifest, that's I would, as much as I wouldn't probably spend too much energy on it, because at that point I kind of wouldn't care about a lot of different things, but I would highly recommend and call out to Christians, like, why are you believing this stuff? I would become a proponent of that movement, because and I would point that out. That would be the first thing. I can't necessarily, again, like I said, like I don't have like the drone or the fighter jets or the proof, some NASA related exploration, vehicle or technology to say, look, like, just look at this, it's flat. I'm not there. I don't think I'll ever get there in my life, financially or otherwise. But, so that is that. I have a feeling we'll still be in limbo. But for me, obviously, I believe that the Earth is flat. But with this prophecy, it's like it's very clear, and it's there. There's no way to escape its grip and its influence on all people. It's not subjective at all. It's very, very clear. And so, to me, people ask, well, okay, if that doesn't happen, would I become a ball earther? To me, it lends a lot of support for that. I wouldn't, again, I would just become sort of apathetic to the whole thing because, there's no real narrative for our existence. So I would then just try and associate with people who, make my life better, are encouraging to me, and allow me to maintain my existence, I guess. So I wouldn't, necessarily switch teams or be on a different team. But, to me, again, if that doesn't happen, no one can then use the Bible to support, flat Earth. Like it would then be out the window. It's you can't cite a book that got one thing wrong to prove something else. Like it got like 1 out of 2. It's like God got the shape of the earth right, but he kind of messed up on Mark of the Beast. No, it's like the whole thing gets thrown out, and then we just look at what's in front of us, like experiments, drones, cameras, math, physics, chemistry, etc. So, again, I will not come from that angle, and in fact, I would be a person who would become more interested in not necessarily proving the shape of the earth, but I would be in people's face that they should not be following the Bible. It would be a deeply satanic, misleading book if the mark of the beast is not fulfilled exactly the way that is prophesied in the book of Revelation, which is the very last book of the Bible. So, I just wanted to talk about that. That's what's at stake here. All the cards are on the table, all the chips on the table. And, I'm all in. I'm just as curious as anybody else to see how this plays out. To me, it's like I always like to set up win-win scenarios in my life. I always try and get into a position where there's only 2 options, and I'm mentally comfortable with both. And I'm mentally comfortable with both. If the earth ends up being flat, and to me, again, that's strong evidence that the mark of the beast will be fulfilled, and soon. I'm preparing myself. A lot of these videos are related to that. And but if it ends up the mark of the beast not being fulfilled and just kind of fades away, to me, I also will then use whatever energy I have if I'm here on this earth to thwart Christianity, Bible thumpers. I will, because I know the Bible, I will then be able to have the ability to speak to them in their own language and challenge them. Why do you believe this book? When it's not predictive, it's lying. Basically, it's claiming that something will happen that doesn't happen. And the Bible, in and of itself, tells us in other places, do not believe a prophet if what they tell you does not come true. And I'll post that in the description when I find the verse. But it tells you to reject it. if someone else says something that does not come true, like that person's a madman, madwoman, and so it's telling you with its own instruction to reject it if the mark of the beast does not get fulfilled. And I think any person with common sense would do that, even if they weren't told in the Bible to do it. But it's just again, it's just common sense. So this is what we're what's on the table. And to me, it's a very exciting time because, it's either a very, very spiritual time, extremely spiritual, or a time where we can purge the world of a lot of spiritualness that is unnecessary and, in fact, extremely evil. So one way or the other, something very big is going to happen, and in my opinion, in the next 2 or 3 years, tops. Hope everyone was doing well. Bye.